Welcome to Common Ground with Bill Walton, featuring conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and thinkers. Fresh perspectives on money, culture, politics, and human flourishing. Interesting people, interesting things.
Today I'm here to talk with two friends of mine, Jimmy Kemp and Lamar Thomas. Our topics are football and family. Both Lamar and Jimmy are products of terrific families and both played professional football. But before we turn to football, let's talk about families. Jimmy, tell me about your family, where you grew up and what
Sure.
life was like in the Kemp family.
Yeah, well, Bill, thanks for having me. Glad to be back and glad you keep on doing this. So I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. My father was a congressman from 1971 to 1989. And back then, congressmen lived where their jobs were. So my dad was a congressman from Buffalo, New York, where he'd played for the Buffalo Bills. And he got elected to Congress in 1970 and took office in 71. I was born in June of 71. And so I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. My mom's in the same house where I grew up. She's been there for 42 years, I guess, and we're just moving her out next year. My parents, Jack and Joanne, got married when they were just out of college, and I'm the youngest of four children. And I only knew my dad as a congressman and a politician, but I was mostly proud that he was a pro football player before I knew him.
He won the AFC championship twice.
The AFL championship.
yeah, right.
Before it became the AFC, it was the American Football League, separate league before merger. And but you know, my world revolves around sports. And I'm 12 years younger than my brother. My brother Jeff played in the NFL for 11 years. And so by the time I was 9 years old, not only had my dad been an NFL quarterback, which that was kind of out of my memory. You know, I loved Roger Staubach of the Dallas Cowboys, despite the fact that I lived in the D.C. area. Redskins fans, forgive me. But my brother he became an NFL quarterback, and I thought that was awesome. So our family kind of revolved around football. Yes, politics was important, but Sundays in the Kemp family, as my dad would say, were a religious holiday. And yeah, we went to church, but it was because of football.
Lamar?
Well, my background is a little different. It's very similar, though, to Jimmy's, but my parents didn't play in the NFL, or my mom or my dad didn't, but we all were revolved around football. So my parents played flag football. They grew up playing flag football.
You grew up in Maryland?
I grew up in Maryland. I'm sorry. I'm from Fort Washington,
town?
Maryland.
Fort Washington? Yeah.
I'm from Fort Washington, Maryland. I have one younger brother. Both of my parents are together. They live together. My dad's name is Sean Thomas. My mom's name is Elwanda Thomas. Okay, my brother's name is Desmond Thomas. My parents they grew up around flag football. So my dad was really big on flag football. My mom also plays flag football.
A lot fewer concussions, I bet.
A lot fewer concussions. My mom they have an interesting story about her playing when she should not have been playing.
Pregnant?
Pregnant. They didn't have enough people. They told her to stand out on the field on the sideline for the extra body, and she goes and starts trying to make plays and, being competitive, the competitive person she is. But for Washington, Maryland, football family wasn't on Sundays for us. It was on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
So you still have a team. You still have a family team.
I still have a family football team that my dad and my mom both still currently play on. And actually, this past Tuesday night, we won our league championship for third time in a row, which my mom and my dad play on the team, which I think is the coolest thing about my life right now, is that I can play football with my dad, my mom, and my brother.
Now, unique. You need a quarterback?
We do need a quarterback. We do need a quarterback.
Now, you played quarterback.
Yeah.
And you played like every position there was.
Kind of. Except for quarterback.
I think you threw
Well,
a few football.
I did play a little bit of quarterback. You're right. I played a little bit of wildcat quarterback.
Now, you grew up in Maryland, Prince George's County.
Mm-hmm.
Your football team went like 50-6 or something like that?
Yeah, so in my 4 years in high school, I lost a total of 5 games.
Yeah.
There was a time where my high school team was ranked in the top 20 in the country. So we had a pretty good high school team. It was a public school, so we didn't get as much of the hype as the private schools got, but We were pretty good public school at the time.
And Jimmy, you played quarterback in high school,
Yes.
and
I played the wishbone. We didn't throw the ball. We had, it always drove my dad crazy.
what's a wishbone?
Come on, Bill.
I'm from Indiana. I play basketball.
The
I
wishbone
get a
is,
pretty good jump shot.
instead of having 3 receivers to throw the football to, you have 3 running backs to hand the ball to.
Oh, my.
And so
Yes.
I was handing the ball off all the time in high school. I'd run it every once in a while, and then my junior year, we threw the ball 7 times in one game, and I completed all 7 passes. And our coach, who'd been an institution at our school, after the game, he said, "Damn it, Kemp. Now we've got to throw more." So, yeah, I played quarterback at Churchill High School in Potomac, Maryland, and then at Wake Forest, and then in Canada for 8 years.
So, Lamar, you were recruited by an extraordinary number of colleges, like 30, 31, I
I
understand.
had 31 Division I scholarships coming out of high school.
And you were an all-Met?
I was all Met. Yeah, I was the number 1 player in the state of Maryland coming out my senior year. I played in the U.S. Army All-American game my senior year. But 31 Division I scholarships, a lot of different schools. It was an exciting time for me.
But I've learned from you, though, that you're not the best football player in your family, best athlete in your family.
I wish that I could take the claim of being the best athlete in my family.
It's your mother.
I'm sure my dad wishes he could take the claim also. I'm sure my brother even wishes that he could take that claim. But yeah, my mom is the most competitive person in the family, and she's probably the best athlete in the family.
I'm sorry I stepped on your punchline. You set that up pretty well. And Jimmy, were you the best athlete in your family?
Yes.
Okay.
Nobody else is
We're
going
not
to
disagreeing,
disagree.
Brother Jeff. They can't defend themselves. So you both played high school football. You were stars in high school. Then you went to college. You went to first Ohio State and then to New Mexico, and you went to Wake Forest.
Right.
And what's it like going from being like the best player in around in high school to going into college and having a lot more athletes that you got to compete with?
I wasn't as highly recruited as Lamar was.
Yeah.
I was an all-Met, but even though I punted also, and apparently the Washington Post thought there was a better quarterback in the county at Springbrook than me, so they made me all-Met first-team punter, and I was not the player of the year. I didn't have a ton of scholarship offers, so I was under no illusion that I was going to be a big fish in a small pond. I had to scrap and fight for anything that I could get at Wake Forest. I had a bunch of 1AA offers, William and Mary, James Madison. Those may have been smaller ponds had I gone there. But I wanted to play 1A football, and Wake Forest gave me that opportunity. And it took me it wasn't until my redshirt senior year, my 5th year, that I became the starting quarterback. So it took me a while, but I had my sights set on what I wanted to do, and I wasn't surprised that it was going to take me a little while.
I've been an intramural athlete my whole life. I was too little as a kid to actually get into competitive sports. I grew a lot when I finally got to college. So I don't know what it's like to be part of a team where you're in a high school or college environment. How different a world is that to be part of a football team on a campus, Ohio State, Wake Forest?
It's a big difference for me. Like coming out being a highly recruited athlete and being able to having the opportunity to kind of go to whatever school I wanted to. Mm-hmm. I went to a school with a big football program, and it was difficult to me to adjust because, like you said, I'm kind of used to, hey, you're the best player in the team. Hey, we're going to kind of center everything around you, to like now you're just kind of like
one
of the guys. And like if you can compete with these guys, then you'll play. But if you can't, then you won't play. So it was a big adjustment for me. And not only did I have to do that in high school, I played a lot of running back. So I was a running back. They handed me the ball a lot in high school. And the times I did catch passes, they would just, hey, run as fast as you can down the field. We'll throw the ball, you catch it. Where now in college, these guys are just as fast. You know, they've been playing receiver or whatever position they're playing. So now I got to make this adjustment to not only learn how to play receiver, but also learn how to not be the most athletic or the fastest or the best guy on the team. So it was quite an adjustment for me. It was a fun adjustment for me, but it was quite the adjustment.
And Jimmy, when Lamar talks about running down the field fast, I think he ran a 4.3 second 40-yard dash.
It's not bad.
How was yours?
We don't need to bring it up.
I bet it didn't start with a 4.
Actually, I ran a 4.85. That's
Hey, there you go.
so
That's good.
I was under 5. So I wasn't going to say that, but once you challenged me, I was a little bit quicker than I was fast.
Well, your dad said you were the best passer in the family.
I told you I was the best athlete.
Okay,
you
well,
don't have to ask any more
Well,
questions.
okay,
About that.
I thought that was just hubris. So you're a football player. You're on the team. You come into Wake Forest. You come into Ohio State. It's not just pure athleticism that gets you the job as a starting this, that, or the other thing. Is there a lot of politics that go into deciding who gets to start and who gets to sit on the bench?
I've gone through situations where I do agree that there are politics that play into who plays and who doesn't play. And I always use this for example. Like I got recruited to go to Ohio State from a high school in Maryland, and to think that if the coaches at Ohio State, that how many times are they going to come to my high school or to come to my area to recruit a player, where the players that they recruit in Ohio, they have to continue to go back year after year after year. I can go back to my high school and say, hey, I don't like this school because of this, and that. But the guy that's from Ohio, they want to make sure that he makes that good impression on his fellow, teammates or the people that he played with before. So they'll kind of, play them a little bit more, or they kind of get that advantage to where, hey, we got to go back to that school and recruit. We don't want any bad feedback coming from, a kid that went to that school. So I feel like I went through that a little bit at Ohio State, where I kind of had to fight that uphill battle of Ohio kids, that might have been the exact same talent as me, but got the upper hand because they were Ohio kids, and Ohio State has to recruit that area, a lot more.
Yeah. Politics in football.
You must have been pretty good at it.
One would think. Well, part of what I think I did understand is that all that stuff doesn't matter. And I bet if you ask Lamar today, is it there? Yes. Are there some preferences that exist? Yes. But I tell you what, if a coach, for the most part, there are coaches who make mistakes, but for the most part, if you keep your head down, you work your tail off, you're a good teammate, and you do what's asked of you, and you show up, and you're persevering, and you're not going to get discouraged by things, you don't have to worry about politics. And I think there are a lot of comparisons there to politics, but I don't think we want to go there yet.
and honestly, I agree, and we talked about it a little bit beforehand, where the decision I did make to leave, that I do.
You left where?
Ohio State. I left Ohio State to transfer to the University of Mexico.
You were there for 2 years.
There for 2 years.
How much did you play?
I was a kick returner.
Yeah.
I started kick returning my freshman year, my sophomore year. I didn't redshirt at all. So that kind of played into me also transferring.
I think the
played 2
coaches
years.
made a mistake there. Without knowing you real well, I think they made a mistake.
So I played 2 years and just primarily returning kicks. And I just looked into my next season kind of being the same way, and I didn't want to only have 2 years left to play. I still had a redshirt year where I could transfer and still sit out and be able to play somewhere in 2 years. So I think that kind of impacted my decision on transferring. But like you said, now looking back, after transferring, I wish I would have stuck it out and realized that the politics really aren't in it as much as I thought it was at the time, and just kind of gave that chance to see if I would be able to get on the field, because after I left, things happened on the roster. Guys transferred, guys didn't do this, and it would have been an opportunity for me to play had I stuck around.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what mistake did the coaches make?
What should they just in college football, the redshirt year is typically used for freshmen, right? So you come in as a freshman, and I think it's wise for coaches to recognize that a 17 or 18-year-old kid coming to a college campus, having to deal with classes that are probably a lot different than they had in high school, and dealing with the freedom of being home.
So they should have redshirted in the first year.
Redshirt him the first year. I was redshirted, not because it's a tough decision. When you've got as much talent as Lamar had, the coach wants to get him on the field because he can help that year, right? And so it was a temptation that they gave into. I'm guessing he would have been better served, and the team would have been had he been redshirted. But I'm just speaking off the top of my head. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I agree. I agree 100%.
So, Jimmy, you went on from Wake Forest to play in the Canadian Football League.
Right.
Difference between Canadian football and American football?
There are a few differences. Instead of 4 downs to get a first down, there are only 3 downs. So you punt on 3rd down instead of 4th down. You always go for it on 3rd and 1 because the defense is required to stay 1 yard off the line of scrimmage. So on 3rd and 1, if you can't get a quarterback sneak for 1 yard, you are pitiful. And so you always go for it on 3rd and 1. It's the equivalent of 4th and 1 in the NFL or college football. There are 12 players instead of 11, and that extra player is a receiver on offense and a defensive back on defense.
So you got, what, 5 receivers then?
So you can have 6 receivers if you
receivers,
want.
okay.
You can have 1 back and
Yeah.
5 receivers, or 2 backs and 4, or no backs and 6. And those 4 of those receivers, let's say you go with 6 receivers, all right? You can take 4 of those receivers, put them in the backfield behind the quarterback, and then they can motion anywhere they want, and they can be running at the line of scrimmage just as long as they're not across the line when the ball's snapped. So they can be going full speed at the line of scrimmage, and a defensive back's eyes were, oh my goodness. And so it's a passing league, and you may have heard of a quarterback named Doug Flutie.
Oh, sure.
And Doug's I would say he's the best Canadian Football League quarterback of all time, and I got to play against him and played with his brother Darren, who was a receiver. But it was a fun league, and most of us, the last thing I'll say about it, Bill, most of us had been cut at some point. We'd been told that we weren't good enough. And that made you angry, and you played with an edge, but you also knew that, hey, football should be fun. I don't want to just be I've been cut before. The worst has happened to me. I'm past that. I'm going to have fun, and we did.
You played, what, 10 years, 12 years?
Just 8 years.
8 years?
8 years.
How many times were you cut in that 8 years?
Well, I was cut by the NFL Europe League. In the one year, I tried out for NFL Europe, and I got cut. So did Jay Gruden, the current head coach of the Redskins. We were teammates during training camp. So that's once. I got traded 2 times. That's a little bit like being cut. And then I didn't get re-signed my final. I was still under contract. I had a wife and 2 kids, and I wanted to be making more money, and I wanted the team to treat me better. And I didn't think it was politics. I just thought it was common sense that they'd pay a veteran quarterback who'd performed pretty well, and they didn't. And so they didn't bring me back, and that felt like getting cut because it wasn't ending my career on my terms.
What was the pay scale at CFL versus NFL?
Yeah, probably about a sixth of what the NFL makes.
Yeah.
If the average salary was, $400,000, then it was, about $80,000 in Canada.
So you went from not throwing the ball at all to throwing the ball all the time.
Yeah, that was fun.
I was just going to ask you, how was the adjustment from Wake Forest, 11 players, traditional 4 downs to Canadian Football League? Is the field also bigger? Or?
Oh yeah, that's right. The field's wider and longer, and the end zones are 20 yards deep instead of 10, and the goal posts are on the line of scrimmage. So you could throw a pass into the end zone, and it could either get knocked down by the goalpost, or the receiver could be looking for the ball, catch it, and hit the goalpost.
Oh, wow.
So, or you could use the goalpost as a pick, right, and take your defender right to the post, and he's backpedaling and doesn't see the goalpost. The adjustment was great because really I was redshirted in my first year of pro football. I was on the practice squad, so they paid me $400 a week, and I didn't travel with the team. And then halfway through the year, the starting quarterback got injured. I got bumped up to second string. The guy who was starting, he got hurt the first game that I was on the active roster, and all of a sudden I found myself in the game, and I was scared. Oh my gosh, I was scared. It was brutal. I did okay, actually. I did okay, but I'll never forget the first time I really took a professional hit. The guy became a good friend of mine, and he's about 5'11", 6 feet, 320 pounds. And I was kind of rolling out, scrambling a little bit. I threw a pass around this guy to a running back, and he put his face mask right in my chest. I was totally exposed, and his 325 pounds drove me right into the ground. Wind knocked out of me, and I thought, welcome to professional football. But after that year, it got a lot easier. So my practice squad year really helped, and I got a little bit of experience.
Well, it's in the family. I'm seeing here that your father played 11 seasons, and he
13.
had 13?
Jack was 13, Jeff was 11.
Okay.
Jimmy,
well,
8.
He suffered a dozen concussions,
Maybe.
2 broken ankles, crushed hand, and what did he tell the doctor when the hand was crushed?
Well, yeah, it was his middle finger.
Yeah.
And his middle finger got crushed. He wanted to come back and play that season. And the doctor said, look, Jack, I can either fix your finger, but it's going to take you a full year to get better, or I can fuse your finger into the shape of a football, and you can come back and play in a month. And Dad said, fuse the finger. And so anytime you shook his hand, he'd have his middle finger sticking into you. He couldn't
So
straighten
the hand
that
was
finger out.
permanently cupped to grasp a football.
His finger was permanently cupped to grasp a football. So he was a determined guy.
Remember Larry Bird, of
Sure.
course. You remember Larry Bird's broken finger? It was pointing the wrong direction, and it didn't seem to hurt him. But
He could shoot.
he was Larry Bird.
Yep.
You went from Ohio State. You were drafted by Denver Broncos. Not yeah.
I was undrafted free agent.
Undrafted free agent.
Undrafted free agent.
What was that
signed
like?
By the Denver Broncos. Well,
Did you go through the combine?
I did not get invited to the combine. So what happened? I transferred to the University of Mexico. I played 1 year. I broke my foot. Set out the rest of that season. So all I had was my senior year to play. They brought in the coach Bob Davie. He brought in a brand new offensive coordinator, and quite like the Wishbone, we ran like the single wing, where we have just option offense. So it wasn't ideal for receivers. So I didn't get any. I had 18 total catches my senior year in college. 18 total catches.
You led the team.
I led the team with 18 catches, and so I didn't get any bowl invites, no combine invites. All I had was my pro day. I ran to my pro day, did pretty well.
This pro day is when the pro scouts come to your campus. That's what I did too. I didn't get to go to the combine.
Yeah, pro scouts come to campus. You do all the testing at your school that they do at the combine. So you do your 40, you do your vertical jump, you do your bench press.
Didn't you tell me you did pretty well with the bench press?
I did do pretty well.
Pro day?
I did do pretty well in my
I think
testing.
you still could do pretty well.
Well,
My testing was really well on my pro day. My bench, 225 bench, I did that 17 times.
Oof.
And the craziest part about that is never before that I had never done it 10 times.
Really?
10 times. Never had done it 10 times
So it was
days
all
before.
adrenaline.
Wow.
All adrenaline. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think I could have gotten more, but I was so shocked when I got to 15 because I had never gotten more than 10 that I think that I just kind of psyched myself out a little
That's
bit.
wild.
Yeah, but I had quite the day. That was the same day I ran 4.3 in the 40, and my vertical was 38, and I just said it was quite the adrenaline day.
it was a good day to be
It was
to be on
it was
fire.
a good day.
Yeah, full disclosure, Lamar's my personal trainer, and I was in the gym with him this morning. We were boxing,
were.
and I'm really glad we have rules that Lamar doesn't get to hit back.
Well, it's working, Bill. He's doing a good job.
Yeah. So CFL, do you miss it?
Oh yeah. There's nothing like being on a team, and having your performance judged. You know you won or lost. It's either a great feeling or it's a really painful feeling. And then the next day, you know what your routine is. Bam! I'm going to go in there. We're going to look at the film, look at the video, and figure it out. And I'm going to try to get better at the things that I screwed up. And I know the guy to my right is going to try to improve those things. And having that common cause in such a defined way on a weekly basis was an awful lot of fun. And life is different now. And it's fine. It's a stage of life. But yes, I do miss it.
Now, were the players in the CFL mostly recruited from the United States? Did they come
There's
out
a
of the-
quota. You have to have half of the players can't be Americans.
How many of the players are African American?
Well, probably, I'd say when I was playing at least, it was about 60% African American.
Now, are there issues of race in Canada, American football? I mean,
There's definitely, I think it's a better place for black players to play in Canada than in the United States, but I didn't play. Well, actually, the Canadian Football League had teams in Sacramento and San Antonio, Baltimore. There was an experiment. And so my first 2 years, I played in the United States in the Canadian Football League in Sacramento and San Antonio. And then that experiment folded, and I went up and played in Canada for my last 6 years. So I know a little bit of the difference. But Michael Pinball Clemens, one of the best running backs I've ever seen, he was a pinball. He just bounced off people. And he grew up in Florida. And he experienced racism in Florida and in Virginia. When he got to Toronto after being cut by the Kansas City Chiefs, he loved Toronto. And he's never moved back to the United States. Has an American wife who's African American, and they've built their life and their family up there. And so I think it's one of the pox on our country that we have not been able to do a better job on race relations.
Lamar, you haven't experienced both countries, but do you have a point of view? Have you heard things, talked with guys about how they feel?
I know a few guys that feel as if it's not equal, you know, and I don't know in what sense, because I don't really get into, too much on the topic of that. I've never experienced personally, I never had any personal experience on, whether African Americans get treated differently in the NFL or not. But I do know of some guys, some friends that still currently play in the NFL that feel as though sometimes that it's not equal or they don't get treated equally.
Have you ever been stopped for very little or no reason by any police officers in the?
Yes, I've had that happen to me before. When I was at Ohio State, that was probably the first time that I've ever really witnessed that happen. It was one late night. I was driving on campus, and I got pulled over, and it was for no reason really, and kind of was just threatened by the cop to tell my head coach, that I was out late and doing nothing, and he just, you're out late. I can report this to Coach Tressel, if I need to, but. I didn't get stopped for, speeding or,
Do you feel like it was more because you were African American or more because you were a football player?
I feel like it was more because I was an African American, because I don't think they knew that I was a football player. They didn't know you were football until they saw you. Until they saw me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're going to solve it on this show. I went to high schools about 80% African American, and I got very friendly with guys, and I try to put myself in their shoes. I couldn't do it. I mean, it's just... We'll figure it out. Next show, we'll figure that out. How about that?
Right now, Bill. Come on.
Now. Let's go. Injuries, football. You got hurt a lot, Lamar.
I did. I am sad
Is that because you committed your body in ways you shouldn't have, or you just...
It's probably a little mixture of that. But also, I also ran track. I also played basketball, and I've done a lot of this stuff since I ran track when I was 6 for the first time, played football when I was 7 for the first time. And so I think that the wear and tear of my body just kind of started to add up. And then the next thing you know, you have, a broken bone here, and you have a pulled muscle here, and you have a concussion here.
So the injuries is because you didn't learn to recover?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. But
flat out. Okay.
But a lot of times, like I broke a bone in my back. I don't think that came from wear and tear on my body. I broke my foot. I broke my finger. I had, some of those injuries I don't think came from wear and tear on my body. It's just, kind of my bad luck at the time. But yeah, I did suffer a lot of injuries.
So Jimmy, what about you? Are you?
I'm very healthy and grateful for that. It's great to be a backup quarterback most of your career. You don't get hit in practice. You don't get hit in games until you get sent in, or they're booing the starting quarterback. So I had one knee injury that wasn't really bad, just a sprained MCL. I had one bad concussion, stayed in the game, but not really. I tore my ACL skiing. I separated my right shoulder, my throwing shoulder, mountain biking.
Okay, so these are not football related.
Being a backup quarterback's a good gig.
So Jimmy, I'm sorry, Jimmy, you're still healthy, and you said you missed the game a little bit. Now we don't watch film, But my flag football team, we play every week. Now,
Hey, that's why I asked you.
you
If you
know,
need a
if
quarterback.
we do need a quarterback. Now, if you itching, you know,
I
give you a call.
This would be, we could create a winning team right
I,
here
I
on the
could.
show.
I think I can still do it.
When do you play? What day?
I play Tuesday nights. I play Sundays. I play Sunday nights, Sunday mornings, sometimes Saturday mornings. I play in a bunch of different leagues, co-ed, all men's,
awesome.
5-on-5, you know, just a bunch of different stuff. I try to stay in a
And
lot
you won
of,
your championship last
won my co-ed championship Tuesday night.
Right, okay.
Yeah, co-ed championship
Sweet.
Tuesday night.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Injuries, concussions. What's going on in today's football? The rules they've got with regard to hits and things like that. What do you think of that?
So one of my last plays was actually a concussion. I got a concussion in the preseason game. We were playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I caught a slant route. Don't really remember the play too much, but I've seen it. I caught a slant route, took a hit, and immediately from there I was knocked out unconscious. And the process to even get back on the field or to be cleared by NFL protocol now is intense now. I mean, to the point where, you know, once I was aware of what was going on, I kind of became a little nervous just because of how I was being treated. You know, like they were very cautious with me, making sure I'm okay. Like, hey, you know, make sure you're not looking at your phone. Make sure the lights aren't too bright in the room. You know, and so it kind of made me a little nervous at the time because I'm like, wait, what's going on? I know it's a bunch of people here and everybody's asking me questions and asking me if I'm all right. Like, you know, what's going on? But now looking back on it, like you can see how how it has evolved, like how much safer they're trying to make the game with paying attention to concussions a lot more.
So do you like the rule, though, that if somebody gives an inappropriate hit, they're out?
I like that rule. You know, I like the rule. I think that the rule should be a little more consistent.
Well, it's hard to.
Yeah, exactly, and it's hard to say, but and then you have times like I saw a clip a few weeks ago. Russell Wilson, he took a hit, and one of the referees sent him over to kind of get looked at.
Oh, yeah.
But he was saying that he was fine, and he kind of waved it off and went back in the game.
Right.
And now I think he's got a fine for that. I want to say it was like $100,000 fine for not going through concussion protocol. So the NFL is taking it serious, and I think they're going about it the right way. But like you said, it's kind of hard to say, well, he looks like he got a concussion, but he doesn't look like, so we're going to pull him out, but we're going to leave him in, So it's that fine line of how do you really determine, like, when do you pull someone out and when do you not pull someone out?
No.
Jimmy?
Well, I coach I've got 4 boys. All of them have played youth football. I coach my 11-year-old, and we've changed the way we teach tackling. We've changed the way we teach blocking. We hit less
You don't
in
use
practice.
the head. You use the shoulder.
Yes, and you're Seattle Seahawks have demonstrated a way to really develop a strong tackling team without risking head injuries. Obviously, it still happens. It's a violent sport. Somehow, I convinced my wife to not only let our 13-year-old play football, but he also plays rugby. I don't believe that we should put kids in bubble wrap and say, okay, we never want you. Life is you can't just protect kids and you can't protect adults who are choosing what to do. But we have to be smart. The really concerning thing to me is that we don't know why some people are susceptible to these brain injuries and others aren't. Some people have had tons of these subconcussive hits and concussive hits.
Well, your father
and they're fine.
Your father doesn't
And he
end
seemed
up
to be
running for
fine, didn't he,
president.
Bill? Yeah,
I know he ran for president. Maybe that explains
maybe
it.
it's concussions yeah, maybe that's right. That was his line, actually. He said, what else was there to do after 12 concussions in football other than run for Congress? No, it is a serious issue. My wife has helped me take it much more seriously than I probably did initially. The research needs to be studied, and I think the NFL is being responsible, but it's clear that they have interests that are very tied up in it. So you need objective research and analysis as well.
Well, the thing that's happened, though, in the last 25 years is the size and fitness of the athletes is just dramatically different, and you're getting hit a lot harder by a lot more muscle. I'm not a subject matter expert, but I think Teddy Roosevelt confronted a lot.
He did.
American football players were dying by the dozens in 1912 or whatever it was. He was president in 1908. And he took charge of the football rules and recreated the rules, and I think did a lot of good because of that. And it seems to me that if we want to keep...
Are you saying that the president could fix this? Sorry. Sorry.
As we speak, there's a long pause. Could and should. He should. He actually could show some leadership.
Sure.
I think he should too. But I don't want to go all the way to flag football. As much as I know you're enjoying it, we got to keep the equipment on. We've got to wrap up, Jimmy. I did want to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing now with the Jack Kemp Foundation.
Oh, thanks, Bill. So I run the Jack Kemp Foundation. I set up the foundation after my dad passed away in 2009. And the reason is because my dad's political philosophy he described as being about the American idea. So our mission is to advance the American idea, the belief and the truth that the condition of your birth should not determine the outcome of your life. That in this country, our government was established for liberty, for people to be able to self-determine what they want to spend their life doing, what flourishing means to them. And so we believe in that American idea, and we believe that it unites much of the country. And that if in our divided times, that if we have a path forward, that it's going to be around something. I think the American idea is a great thing to come around, which allows people to compete their ideas, but with civility, with respect for one another. And you can be a Democrat, you can be a Republican, you can be a different skin color, you can be a different gender, you can have a different sexual preference, whatever. But we can be civil and compete our ideas and try to build a more perfect union. We do that through the Kemp Forum, and we have a Kemp Forum on expanding opportunity with both Republican and Democratic political leaders in Chicago. We will be in Chicago in March of 2018, and we're going to be talking about how to expand opportunity, how to fight poverty.
Where in Chicago?
To be determined, and
Okay.
date is to be determined, so stay tuned. I'll get you that information as soon as we get it. Speaker Paul Ryan, this was his idea originally, and we did one Kemp Forum on expanding opportunity in January of 2016, where we got presidential candidates to talk about their proposals to fight poverty and help people become upwardly mobile, give equality of opportunity. And so that's how the Kemp Foundation is trying to do our part. We just had a big event last night where we honored Senator Tim Scott, who will also be at the event in Chicago. So we're trying to stay active and be a part of the solution.
Website?
jackkempfoundation.org.
jackkempfoundation.org.
Sounds like something I want to look into. I could tell you talking about it, you seem really passionate about it.
I love it's a great privilege to do it. I'm grateful for the goodwill that my dad generated in his political career, and it's football that helped him understand how to treat people from different backgrounds. And he's given me a wonderful legacy that I can build from. And there are a lot of people who loved him, and Bill has been a good friend to us as well. So we appreciate your friendship and look forward to staying in touch with you, Lamar.
Lamar, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
Jimmy, thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
We'll pick another interesting topic, and although it's hard to go wrong with football, but we'll get you back.
Somehow people have managed to this year.
We got another show on that. Okay, guys, thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening. Want more? Be sure to subscribe to Common Ground with Bill Walton on iTunes.